Well, welcome everyone to day 11 of edpuzzle. Wow, we haven't had an edpuzzle in a while. I hope you enjoy this one. I certainly enjoyed making it. So here we go, everyone. So the question that we ended class with was why the plural of blood when it says, "What have you done?" God said, "The voice of your brother's bloods cries out to me from the ground." And Shayna gave us a great answer. But suppose Shayna wasn't in the class, and suppose we wanted to figure out the answer to that question, and suppose I told you that Rashi was the person that could help us answer that question. Well, I would like to introduce you today to a program called Safaria, which is going to help you whenever you have to search things out in the Torah and search out a particular parshan or a commentator of the Torah. So that's one of the things we're going to be looking at today. So, of course, here's that verse, right? What have you done? Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. And of course, there it is. Demei is not dam, called dam achicha, not the blood of your brother, but the blood. So, of course, that's a very strange thing. And Rashi would, of course, have a question about it. And there it is. Why does the Torah say bloods of your brothers instead of blood of your brothers? So, and of course, this is a problem with what? What of our 5 problems would this be? That's question number 1. But what if I wanted to figure this out on my own? So here it is, Safaria, a living library of Jewish texts, which you can find by going to safaria.org. And this is a really important program for you to know as a budding Torah scholar because really an entire library of Jewish texts are at your fingertip by using Safaria. It's really revolutionized. We have our class in a Beit Midrash in a room where there are a lot of Jewish texts, but only Shabbat and Yom Tov, when you can't access electronics, this program Safaria would be not allowed to kind of a very observant Jew. But every other day of the week, there's really no reason to go and look in a real book when you can kind of do all of your research right here, and it's so easy and simple and straightforward, and it's revolutionary. You're gonna love it. So let's move forward. So here's how Safaria works. So first of all, when you go to safaria.org, you're going to see a page like this, and it's going to bring you to a number of different options, which you could then go ahead and click on. Right, Tanakh, which is Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, and the Torah is in there. Mishnah, Talmud, Midrash, Halakha, Kabbalah, Liturgy, Jewish Thought, Tosfot, Chassidut. Some of these things you probably don't even know what they are. Hopefully, you will learn them before you leave TVT, and if not, afterwards. So, but if we click on, suppose we're searching for that question of call demei achicha, the bloods of our brothers. So we're going to click on Tanakh, and all of a sudden we go to this page that has the Torah, Nivi'im, or prophets, and then lower down it's going to have Ketuvim. But we're going to want to press on Bereshit because we know this part of the Torah that we've been talking about is the very beginning in Bereshit. So we're going to click on that. And you're going to see that there are 2 options now. You can either click on the right chapter if you knew what the right chapter was, or you could click on the right Torah portion. But we know the right chapter is chapter 4, and we're going to click on that. And we happen to know that it is chapter 10. Now, so here is the verse itself. What have you done? Hark, your brother's bloods cry out to me from the ground. And let's isolate that. Oh, but what have you done? Hark, your brother's blood cries. Boo, Safaria. Safaria did not translate in the real way it should be, which is bloods, right? For some reason, they resolved the contradiction by just changing the translation. Hey, that's not allowed, but here they did it. But let's go ahead, and if we click on that entire verse, then what's going to come up on this side is a list of different things you can get. So it's going to tell you that there are 47 comments about this verse. There are 5 places in the Talmud that talk about this verse. There are 15 places in the Midrash that talk about this verse. And there's 2 places in Jewish law of Halakha that talk about this verse as well. Also down here, interesting enough, that 145 people have used this verse when they've created a study guide or a class. So these are often fun to look at as well. You can kind of look at these sheets and see how other people use this text to develop a class. But we're going to click on commentary, and once we do that, you're going to see a whole bunch. I could click on all 33 comments, But I'm going to go to Rashi since I know I really want to see what Rashi has to say. So I click on Rashi, and all of a sudden I get Rashi's answer to the question. And well, what do you know? Look at what Rashi says right in the beginning. Demei is plural bloods, his blood and the blood of his possible descendants, which is exactly what Shana said when it talks about bloods. It's saying, hey, you didn't just kill one person by killing Abel. You killed Abel and all of the potential progeny, potential children that would come from Abel as well. That's why kind of one person is a multitude, one person is a universe, and saving a life is like saving a universe, and killing someone is like killing a universe. It's a very powerful idea that is very important in Jewish law. By the way, Rashi gives one other answer to the question of why plural the bloods. What is the answer for that? And hint, 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 it's right below what I have outlined in green. So summarize that for me in the next question. All right. So let's practice with Safaria for a second. So I'd like you, and we're going to practice with this verse right here. Vayikra Adonai Elohim et ha'adam vayomer lo ayeka. This is right in the beginning of the Torah. And God called to Adam, and God said to Adam, where are you? So first of all, Rashi, of course, is going to have a question here. What is Rashi's question? We've gone over this before. What is Rashi's question? Well, now let's go ahead and you do your part by going to the book of Breshit, chapter 3, verse 9, and go to Rashi and see if you can figure out the answer. Well, welcome back. I hope you figured out the answer and were able to write that into the right spot on your edpuzzle. Why God says Ayeka. And let's see if you did it correctly. First of all, there you go. So we had a sheet like this. We went to Genesis. We then went to chapter 3. We then went to Pasuk 9. And look at that. There it is. We click on that. And then we're going to get commentary. There's 33 comments. We click on that, and we're going to click on Rashi, and there it is right there. There's the Rashi. He knew where he was. God knew where he was, but he asked this in order to open up a conversation with him so we wouldn't become confused in his reply. All right. So, and look at that. Look what happens next. If he were to pronounce punishment. Similarly, in the case of Cain, he said to him, 4:9. Oh, let's look at that. Well, look at that. 4:9 is 4 is talking when I have something like this. 4 is the chapter, 9 is the verse. So let's now move to Genesis chapter 4, verse 9, when God says to Cain, Ayeka, or where are you? Let's look at why actually God would say to Cain, where are you? So go find the answer to that question, write it in the spot, and then we'll go over it. All right, welcome back. We're going to go over how to do it. So, but before we do, I just want to say that you can start the process in a quicker way by going up to where it says text right up here, and that will bring you back to kind of that main page. Okay, so here we go. So now we're going to go over it. And here we go. Oh, so there it is. Where's your brother Abel? He says, I don't know. And here was Rashi's answer. Where is Abel, thy brother? Thus entering into a friendly conversation with him. Perhaps he might repent and say, I have killed him and sinned against you. That's interesting, actually. When God comes to Adam, he comes to Adam not because he wants Adam to repent, but here in this case, he does want Cain to repent. Why is that? Why is that difference? That's interesting. Okay, let's go to one other verse, and this is really what Hunter was asking about the other day. And he said, now, how is it that Cain and Abel are able to have wives? Because actually in the Midrash we saw that actually one of the things that they might have been fighting about, which led to the killing, was fighting about Eve, right? Who gets Eve as a wife? Oh, that's disgusting. I can't even think about that. Okay, but so we're gonna get. It's gonna be a little bit. We're gonna disprove that midrash by showing you right now that Cain and Abel did have potential mates, to people to get married to. And how do we know that? So let's look at this verse above, because that's where Rashi is going to learn this for us. Now, the human knew his wife Eve, human being Adam knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have gained a person with the help of Hashem. So this is in Bereshit, chapter 3, verse 9. The first thing I want you to do is to look at this interesting thing in this verse. Et, et, et. It says 3 times et. Now, what does actually the word et mean? Normally, if you ask any Hebrew teacher what the word et means, is et means nothing. It should not be translated. It is the sign that what will come next is the direct object of the verb, right? So, and that's exactly right. However, if we look at a biblical dictionary, you're going to see that et can mean something else as well. It says number 2, so it's like a second definition. It's not the primary, but it is a definition. So what does et mean? What could et mean? And according to this definition of et, how might you translate the very first verse of the Torah using this new definition of et? It's kind of radical, actually. So translate that verse for me using et not as nothing, but et as this new as meaning this. So, and now let's go back to our verse about Cain and Abel being born. We've got 3 ets here. So, before we get to Rashi's answer, what do you think those ets could actually mean? All right. And now, please go to the book of Bereshit, chapter 4, verse 1. Go to Rashi's the 4th comment. He's got a bunch of comments. Go to the 4th comment that Rashi makes, the one that talks about the ets. All right? And give Rashi's answer to what all of these ets actually mean. All right, let's go to Rashi now. So we have, here it is. Rashi's here, and we've got Rashi's answer right here. The 3 ets signify the scope, signify an extension of the scope of the text, teaching us that a twin sister was born with Cain, and that with Abel, 2 were born. So, Cain has a twin, and Abel has when Abel was born, 2 other people were born. Obviously, girls were born. So my question to you now is, I know that a twin sister was born to Cain using the idea of the et, but how do I know that 2 other children were born to Abel? You should be able to figure that out by looking at verse number 2. All right. And how do I know, actually? Because if we look at verse number 2, I see an et here and an et here before it even talks about it's right. And she had birth another time, et his brother, et Havel. So 1, 2 extra. So very interesting, right? So Hunter, I hope that answers your question. It's still a little on the ancestral side as well. So it is a little disgusting, but it's not, at least it's not edible, but it is ancestral. So maybe a little bit less. Okay, so let's move on, and we're going to move on to kind of this question of what is it that makes Cain kill Abel? That's what I want to look at right now, and I want to look at an English at a great book. You know, if there's a book that you might want to read at some point that's probably not being read at school, but you want a wonderful read. Actually, Yona Light is actually reading it right now, and it is called East of Eden by John Steinbeck. A lot of you know Mice and Men. A lot of you know Grapes of Wrath, both great books as well. But East of Eden, oh my goodness. And basically, East of Eden is the Cain and Abel story. And check this out at the end. Read this with me here. What Lee, kind of the helper of the kind of like the cleaning man of this guy Samuel. Lee, this is towards the end of the book. Lee answered Samuel, I think this is the best known story in the world because it is everybody's story. I think it is the symbol story of the human soul. The greatest terror a child can have is that he is not loved, and rejection is the hell he fears. And with rejection comes anger, and with anger, some kind of crime in revenge for the rejection, and with the crime, guilt. And there is the story of humankind. I think that if rejection could be cut away or amputated, the human would not be what he is. So according to John Steinbeck and according to his understanding of the Cain and Abel story, the reason why Cain actually kills Abel is not because they were arguing, but because of rejection. What is the rejection we're talking about here? Right? The rejection of God, of Cain's sacrifice, even more than the acceptance of the other brother's sacrifice. So, if God is the cause of this machloket and the results are not what God intended, then what should be our proof of this? We kind of ended class with this kind of statement. What should be the proof that God is actually not so happy that he is the cause of all of this murder and all of this strife? So give me some ideas of what we might expect to find in the text, of what we can now actually look for to try to find proof. Is God upset with himself? Is God kind of self-angry? Is God self-reflective in any way? All right. So, does God feel guilt? And if so, do we see it in the text? So let's read. Therefore, you shall be more cursed than the ground which opens its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. If you till the soil, it shall no longer produce its strength for you. You shall become a ceaseless wanderer on earth. So this is the punishment that he gets. You shall be more cursed. You shall if you till the soil, it won't produce anything for you. You will become a ceaseless wanderer on earth. Cain said to God, my punishment is too great to bear. Since you have banished me this day from the soil, and I must avoid your presence and become a restless wanderer on earth, anyone who meets me may kill me. God said to him, I promise if anyone kills Cain, a 7 times punishment will be given to that killer. And God put a mark on Cain to make sure that anyone who met him should not kill him. Cain left the presence of God and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain knew his wife, she conceived and bore Enoch, and he founded a city and named the city after his son Enoch. Is there proof in this part of the Torah that God feels that God is guilty and that God feels that God has caused this incident? Let me know. Great. What makes Cain's punishment such a hard one? And why is he actually the first to react to the severity of the punishment? Right? Adam gets a punishment, Eve gets a punishment, the Nachash gets this kind of punishment, and no one yet says, I can't handle this punishment. How can you do this to me? It's only Cain that for the first time there's a sense of, wow, I have a tough punishment. Is it because he has the worst punishment of all? Is his punishment worse than Adam's, worse than Eve's, worse than the Nachash's? Or is there something else that makes Cain cry out and say, this is way too hard for me, God? Why isn't Cain's punishment that he's killed, right? Shouldn't the kind of the biblical idea of an eye for an eye that Eric mentioned in class, shouldn't if Cain committed murder, shouldn't actually Cain be killed at this point? Isn't that what we should be learning? That if you kill someone, then your life should now be gone as well? Why isn't Cain killed? How does God respond to Cain's cry? Does God reduce the punishment? Does God change the punishment? Why is Cain the first to say that his punishment will distance him from God? Right? The first, I asked another question of why does Cain say my punishment is too harsh? But actually, Cain also says that I'm going to be distanced from God. Didn't Adam and Eve think the same thing would happen to them? Why don't they mention it? Why is actually Cain mentioning something about his distance from a relationship with God? This is so interesting. And how does this actually flesh out the idea of who Cain is when we realize that Cain is the first person actually to offer God a sacrifice? we may actually be talking about a Cain who is not a deeply irreligious man, but a man who is incredibly what? And why? What are our proof texts for that? Okay, before we move on, one final piece about the Cain and Abel story, a fascinating, fascinating midrash before we move on. Okay, and what is a midrash? A midrash tries to fill in some of the gaps for us in the text. It's written by, not by God, right? We don't have a sense that this is divine. We have a sense that these midrash are stories that the rabbis are using to try to grapple with the text itself. And this is, oh my goodness, this is such a good one. All right, so here we go, everyone. So, okay. So, oh, oh, I messed up here, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, so here we go. Midrash Tanchuma says the following. When God asked Cain, "Where is your brother, Abel, your brother?" Cain replies, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? You, God, are the guardian of all. So why are you asking me? To what can this be compared?" This is a typical idea that a midrash says. What can this be compared to? And now we're going to have a parable. This can be compared to a thief who steals during the night, but is not caught while he is committing the crime. When the guard comes to imprison him the next morning and asks, "Why did you steal those utensils?" The thief replies, "My job is to be a thief. I'm doing what I was created for, and I did not neglect my profession. Your job is to keep watch at the gate. You are the one that didn't do your job. So why are you questioning me?" So Cain said to God, "True, I killed Abel, but you, God, created the desire in me to do evil. Since you, God, are the guardian of all, why did you permit me to kill him? Also, if you had accepted my sacrifice as you accepted my brother's sacrifice, I would not have been envious of him." Oh my goodness. Cain in this midrash is telling God off. Cain in this midrash is saying, "God, you are guilty for two reasons." What are those two reasons? Cain in the midrash is also compared to the thief, and the thief who has a job. But God is compared to the guard who has a job as well. What is the guard's job? And when the guard doesn't do his job, that allows what to happen? That allows the thief to do his job. Very interesting. So now let's try to answer the final questions. Is machloket a part of the Cain and Abel story? Number two, according to Aaron Zoo, God saw that God did something in the Garden of Eden story that caused the machloket. And God was trying deliberately to fix this by doing something differently this time. What was that? And there is Aaron Zoo's email address if you'd like to contact him to ask him to explain the beautiful idea he came up with in class last week, because this is really, really important and really threads together these two stories in a way that I had no idea was possible. Well done, kol hakavod, Aaron Zoo. Make sure you get his answers. You can write it in the answer sheet. Okay, if yes, the machloket of Cain and Abel was created by whom? The primary machloket maker is not causer, but the maker, the person who kind of creates the machloket. The primary reason for this machloket is, and is the machloket resolved? Yes or no? All right. So now we're up to Noah and the flood. And what I'd like you to do right here is we're just going to read together the first part of the story, and I'm going to ask you a question once we get to the end. So let's read through. God said to Noah, I have decided to put an end to all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence, Hamas, because of them. I am about to destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark, a teva of gopher wood, and make it an ark with compartments, and cover it inside and out with waterproof materials. This is how you shall make the ark. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make an opening for daylight in the ark with the cubits at the top. Within a cubit at the top, put the entrance of the ark in its side. Make it with a bottom, a second, and a third deck. For my part, I am about to bring the flood waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh under the sky in which there is breath of life. Everything on earth shall perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall enter the ark with your sons and your wife and your sons' wives and all that live. All of the flesh you shall take 2 of each animal to the ark to keep alive with you. They shall be male and female, from the birds of every kind, from the cattle of every kind, from every kind. They will be food for you, and they will be food for. Okay, sorry, I messed up looking at this, but I think we can say what I want to know is this is right after this we get a response from Noah, from Noah. And I want to first think about what might be the response. If Noah is a machloket maker, what is going to be his response? If Noah is not a machloket maker, what is going to be Noah's response? And what is Noah's response? Da-dan. Machloket maker or non-machloket maker. Let's go to the next part of the verse. And the next part, then God said to Noah, so read through this and tell me where is write down the verse that tells us either that Noah is a machloket maker or Noah is a non-machloket maker. And there it is. And let's go to our next our next part, and read through this and tell me where in this verse we see Noah being either a machloket maker or a non-machloket maker. And there it is right there. So Noah is a non-machloket maker. Noah is, we see 1, 2, 3 times that Noah is told about the earth being destroyed, and God says, don't worry, Noah, you're going to be okay. Your family is going to be okay, and I'm going to destroy everything else. But check out what Rabbi Sachs has to say. Noah's greatness was also his weakness. Noah stood still, which is actually the name in Hebrew, Noach, rested. Noah's gift was that he lived through a time of widespread evil and he was not affected by it. He was unmoved. He was unable to grow. But what was Noah's failure? Told that there would be a flood and that he should build an ark, he busied himself in that task. The Torah goes out of its way to emphasize his obedience, stating no less than 3 times that Noah did exactly what God had commanded him. Throughout the whole of the narrative, the warning of the floods, the building of the ark, the gathering of the animals, the beginning of the rain, Noah says nothing. The silence, in contrast to the dialogue that Adam and Cain have with God, is unmistakable. Noah's failure is that, righteous in himself, he has no impact on those he lived around. He does not engage with them, does not rebuke them or urge them to mend their ways, nor does he pray for them. Questioning the judgment, the justice of the flood. Jewish tradition judges Noah unfavorably. How about that? Jewish tradition judges Noah unfavorably. In Jewish folklore, Noah becomes a tzaddik im pels, a righteous man in a fur coat. There are 2 ways of keeping warm on a cold night: buying a fur coat or lighting a fire. Buy a coat and you keep yourself warm. Light a fire and you keep others warm also. Noah, the righteous man, fails to exercise collective responsibility. Is Noah a machloket maker? Yes or no? Is Noah, according to Rabbi Sachs, someone that we are supposed to emulate? Yes or no? And why? So, according to Rabbi Sachs, are we supposed to applaud the machloket maker or applaud the non-machloket maker? And yet, think it's really interesting to know that look what happens at the end of the Noah story. God blesses Noah and his sons and says to them, "Be fertile and increase and fill the earth." Where have we heard those words before? Go to Bereshit chapter 1, verse 22 in Safaria.com and figure out who is being talked to when those words are spoken. That's right. Who are those words being spoken to? They are spoken to Adam and Eve. As if Noah all of a sudden, even though Rabbi Sachs doesn't like a non-machloket maker, it seems that God does. It seems that God is specifically searching out a machloket maker, a non-machloket maker, to start the world again. It seems that God is specifically saying, you, Noah, and your family are the new what? That's right. You, Noah, and family are going to be the new Adam and Eve. And if you're not a machloket maker, and you're a follower, an obedient follower, that means that who am I going to have? Your children will most likely also be that way. And now I'm going to have a world of non-machloket makers. So what I'd like you to do, because we've got two more stories to get through before we finish kind of our intro unit of our class, which is called The Story of the History of Machloket in the Early Parts of the Torah. And what we've done so far is we've looked at the Adam and Eve story, we've looked at the Cain and Abel story, and now we've looked at Noah and the flood. So what I'd like you to do is the very last part of this lesson, sorry about that, what I'd like you to do, the very last part of this lesson is to tell the story of the history of Machloket in the early parts of the Torah in these three stories and kind of show me how it works. And I'd say do this in 5 sentences. All right. That's it, everyone. See you in class.